So that probably the last page felt pretty easy. We're going to step up the difficulty level of the questions, not really in the process we're using, but in what results when we do the different parts. So it says a more complicated scenario arises when a square root expression is equal to a linear expression. So here we have a square root expression equal to a linear expression because we have an x on that side now. With certain solving techniques, extra solutions can be created that are not actually solutions. These solutions are known as extraneous and can always be found by checking the solutions in the original equation. So I think we're used to in algebra when we solve that what we get is the answer. We saw a little bit of this when we had to think about restricted values when we solved rational equations, but it's actually going to happen even more often and less predictably in these equations. And we'll talk more about why tomorrow. For today, we're just going to solve. When we get an answer, we'll check it. So the first thing I'm going to do here, that radical is already isolated, so I'm just going to square both sides. Cancels on that side. Over here, just as we learned before, I can't distribute my squared over subtraction, so I have to write this twice. I'm trying to set everything equal to 0 because I see I'm going to have a quadratic, so I do have to multiply this part out first. This is not conjugates, these are the same sign, so the middle term is not going to cancel here, which would be nice, but it does not happen. So I see that I have a quadratic because I have an x squared, so I'm going to move everything over to one side. And I get x squared minus 8x plus 12 equals 0. So from here, I'm going to factor the equation. And I solve, and I get x equals 6 and x equals 2. So here's where we have that situation. I did all my algebra correctly, right? And I got two answers. It seems like they're right, but one of them, or even maybe both of them, might not work. So what we're going to do is we're going to look on the calculator and just talk about checking them. I can check them by hand too. So what I'm doing, and I'm going to write one out, is I'm going to plug in the answer to the original equation. So I'm plugging in a 6. So does the square root of 2 times 6 minus 3, so that's the square root of 9, equal 3? And the answer is yes, right? That is true, so this is a good answer. So the second one, does the square root of 2 times 2 minus 3 equal 2 minus 3? So this is the square root of 1. The square root of 1 is not negative 1. And a square root, I know sometimes we do plus or minuses, but that's when we're solving x squared equations. This is just a regular square root that comes up in an equation. So this does not work. So my only answer is the 6. 2 is an extraneous solution. As I said, we'll talk about more why those happen tomorrow. For now, we just have to know how to check. It's pretty fast to do this on the calculator, so I'm just going to show the 2. So I can store the 2 as x, and then I can just type in 2x minus 3 and 2 minus 3, so I'm just typing in both sides, and really I should type in x minus 3 on that side, right, just so I'm typing in exactly what I see in the equation, and I see that my 1 does not equal my negative 1, right, so I know that that is not a correct answer. So let's look at the next one. I do not need to see your checks, but you need to do them so that you can do them on the calculator without writing them. Next one. We don't have the square root by itself, so the first thing we have to do is move over the 2. And then next step is to square both sides. Square root cancels. Not leave myself a lot of room. Now, if you're comfortable with doing this whole process in your head without writing an extra step, that can be helpful at this point. So what I mean by that is I have 4x squared. These two terms are going to combine, so that's 4x plus 4x is 8x. And then my last terms just give me a 4. So if you can do that without writing an extra step, that's great. If you feel like you need to be careful and write the extra step, that's fine too. So I'm going to move over to set equal to 0 because I have a quadratic. And I get 4x squared plus 7x minus 2 equals 0. So it looks like we need to use AC grouping. So I bring the numbers together, I have a -8. So this is going to be 4x squared minus 8x plus 1x minus 2. Group. Take out the -1 so that my binomial matches. And my solutions are going to be +2 and a +1/4. We know those may or may not work, right? So I'm going to do this one solely on the calculator this time, just to kind of show that process out and show how it is a pretty fast way to do this. So my first answer is 2, so I'm going to do 2 stores x. I'm going to type in the one side, which is just 2x. I'm going to type in the other side, which is the square root of x plus 6 minus 2. And I see they get plus 6 minus 2. So let me just see if I made a little mistake on that. Nope, looks like it doesn't match up. So I got a +2, I checked it, and it does not work. So looking at this one, we are going to cross out that number, and that is not an answer. So we're going to move on to the 1/4 now. So 1/4 stores x, and we can highlight what we already did. So I got 1/2 for that side and 1/2 for that side. So I can see that that one works. And so I'm going to circle it, and that is my answer. So there's 2 more. I'm going to suggest that you try them on your own. Remember to check your answers at the end. And also remember, you both might work, one might work, neither might work. It's kind of like, we'll talk tomorrow about like what we kind of expect to happen and why. But I do just always need to check them in general in this type of equation. So hopefully you've tried them. I'm going to go through the process and do this now. So I'm going to add 6. And divide by 3. So now I'm ready to square both sides. In my head, so I have 2x, 2x is 4x, and 2 times 2 is 4. I'm going to set it equal to 0, because I have a quadratic. And I get x squared plus x minus 12 equals 0. So factoring this out, I get answers of 3 and -4. And when I check those answers, the -4 does not work, but the 3 does. So last problem. This one, I want to multiply by 2 first on both sides, right? I'm trying to isolate the radical. If you wonder why we're not starting with addition here, this is a fraction, so this is kind of all held in parentheses together. So that's why the division has to start before the addition or subtraction. So subtract the 2. Square both sides. If you can do this safely, thinking about that I have to write 2x minus 2 twice, so that should give me 4x squared, 2x times 2x. -2 times 2x is -4x. I have that in 2 spots, so that's -8x. -2 times -2 is 4. That's pretty advanced. I'm still going to suggest writing it twice and at least looking at it that way. But it is possible to do it that part in your head as well at this point. So we have another AC grouping here. numbers that multiply to 36 and add up to negative 13 are negative 4 and negative 9. So I split the middle, go into my grouping step. And I get 1 and a 9/4. And actually, in this case, if I check them in the original equation, both of them work. If you're watching the end of this video and you're confused about the checking process, I went over it in the top 2 examples, so just go back to those 2.